Hello and welcome to another edition of Fide's podcast. My name is Jerry Serino and I'm your host, and I'm here with talent on loan from Rush. We have been talking about the transgender issue for a long time, and it went really quickly, went off the rails. I mean, it went off the rails from the very get-go, I guess. But when our children started getting taken advantage of and started having surgeries and hormone blockers and things, many times, I should say, being done behind the backs of the parents. We've also had hospitals that have told us, no, we're not doing that stuff. We're not involved in it in any way. And then, of course, we find out it's true. So we have I have with me today, Alix Aharon. She is also known as the gender mapper. She is exposing these clinics that are doing these gender reassignment surgery, and I'm really excited to be talking with her today. Alix, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I want to first ask what's interesting, because I don't know a whole lot about your background. I know, the essence of what you're doing as far as mapping out, who's involved in these gender reassignment surgery and hormone blockers or whatever they're doing. But how, what's your background? How did you get into doing this?
So I actually came to this from the perspective of being someone who was very against the sex industry and pornography industry. I was very active in trying to pass laws, basically, that would help women get out of the sex industry. So I came from a perspective really of like traditional feminism. If you want to think about, the way feminism was back in the 70s, I was
Hmm.
concerned about domestic violence. I was concerned a lot about, obviously the porn industry. And this just kind of fell into my lap, that we were finding out that mainly teenage girls were presenting at gender clinics in insane numbers. So I formed an organization with four other women called Partners for Ethical Care. We're a 503c based out of Chicago, and we're actually abolitionists. So that means that we don't believe in regulating the child gender industry. Our aim is to completely abolish it. We don't think it can be legislated. We don't think it can be perfected. We don't think it can be, improved, right? We want to
Hmm.
completely abolish the entire thing. And yeah, that's what we've been doing for the past couple of years. And, just as a kind of a side thing, I wanted to count all of the child gender clinics in the world, right? Not just in the US. Like my map is, you go to map.gendermapper.org. It's global, right? We've got volunteers in Australia. We've got volunteers in the Middle East. We've got volunteers in Europe. We've got volunteers in South America. And what we wanted to do is to actually see how many for-profit, independent gender clinics there were in the entire world. And there's over 300. And it's growing, by the way, every single day, right? We're calling up new clinics every day and adding them onto the map.
So where can people find the map?
Sure, it's map.gendermapper.org.
All right.
Extremely easy. Extremely easy to find. There's a various kind of key. The purple are pediatric gender clinics, and the orange are actually surgical clinics. So they're ones that will do the double mastectomies on the 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and all of that horrifying stuff.
It is horrifying. It is beyond horrifying, and every time we talk about an issue like this, and sadly many others, sometimes I can't believe we're actually talking about this. Yeah, it really
Mm-hmm.
shocks me beyond belief, beyond what I can even fathom. So
Yeah.
when you talk about gender clinics, is there a difference between a clinic that is considering themselves sort of like this all-encompassing gender clinic versus a hospital that will do a cosmetic surgery, a double mastectomy or something like that, specifically for
Mm-hmm.
gender reasons? Is there sort of a difference between a clinic and a center who's willing to do a surgery?
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, we've certainly decided to map out the orange ones on our map. Most of them are independent for-profit clinics. I mean, a couple of them I've actually been physically to their offices, right? Thinking about, Align Surgical is a great example. They're based
Hmm.
in San Francisco, beautiful office, and do you know what, Jared, do you know what they will do to people in that clinic? They will perform non-binary surgeries, which means that you kind of go in and you decide, I want to have half of a penis, a hole drilled into me. I mean, really just like horrifying stuff. And nobody, you talk about this and people say, you're talking nonsense. There's no way people are doing these non-binary surgeries. And then I go there, I pull up the photos, I bring the brochures, and people are like, I can't, people can't fathom what they're seeing. I mean, even for me, it's difficult every time I see these pictures to even understand what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So for those of
Yeah.
you watching, I actually am sharing my screen and I pulled up the map and that's I'm also
Mhm.
scrolling the
Mhm.
website at the bottom of the screen,
Mhm.
map.gendermapper.org, and you
Mhm.
can see, so if you're interested in, depending on where you live, if you're interested in seeing where these clinics are, um,
Mhm.
here's the place to go.
Mhm.
This is what Alex is doing. So
Mhm.
what kinds of, Alex, what kind of pushback have you gotten from hospitals? Do they lie about
Well,
what they're doing, or?
no, I mean, listen, okay, so it's actually very difficult because when I go into, I mean, I've gone into Planned Parenthood many times and gotten, and kind of seen what the process is for getting hormones. Everyone is incredibly nice. Um, I actually have recordings that we've done when we've called clinics and we've masked our voices, obviously. You can listen to it. It's on my website, it's on my YouTube channel. You call up and you say, "Hey, my son is really, really stressed out about his periods, and I want to know if we can come by and maybe see about getting on tea." And the warmth and the love that you get from them is phenomenal. They're like, "You're the best mother in the world. You're a fantastic person. Blah blah blah. No problem. Well, come. We'll help you." You can listen to all of these. They love bomb you basically. And I don't have anything particularly. I don't have anything against anybody that works at Planned Parenthood. I know that most of the people that work there are incredibly good people with you know great hearts, and they think they're doing a great thing. But really, you have to also look at the head of the snake, right? It's the people who are opening up these for-profit clinics, like, for example, Dr. Cy Gallagher, right? She opened up this clinic just to perform double mastectomies on women, on young girls, teens and young girls. And she's drinking champagne on a yacht, and she's walking around her beautiful condo, look at how much money I have, look at what I've achieved from my independent surgical practice of removing vulnerable girls' breasts.
So are these clinics, and it probably is a mixed answer, are they doing these surgeries because they truly believe in it from a medical, because you see a lot of talk about, they're saying that gender affirming care and it helps them. So if they're if they're confused or whatever their issue is, chopping off their breasts is actually going to help them or whatever. Are these clinics, do you
Mm.
think, doing this because they believe that it is good health care for them, or are they doing it for money?
I think it's really a mix. I do see some clinics that are pure
Mhm.
just profiteers. I mean, in addition to also offering you the surgery, they'll also give you a $200,000 line of credit, right? So you can really be someone that's a very incredibly limited means. And just from a kind of a personal story that I have that happened to a man that lives locally to me. He was sent home from the hospital after he had vaginoplasty, which is when they remove the penis and create a so-called vagina. He was sent home from the hospital. Nobody came to pick him up. He was in such a vulnerable state as an individual. Nobody could come and bring him his medication. Nobody could come and bring him his antibiotics. and he left the hospital on a bus, in a diaper, right? So that's the kind of thing that makes me feel so angry. I mean, I can't even particularly express it. And
Hmm.
if you look actually at Dr. Cy Gallagher in Miami, we've taken a few pictures of her website where she actually has like a glory picture, like a two thumbs up, with a girl that is covered in self harm scars. So she's covered in scars on her arms, on her stomach, and now Dr. Gallagher has come and removed her breasts. And it's, you know, the, I can't particularly enter the head of a person that could do something like that, right? Is it really worth it? The $30,000 that you got, is it really, is it worth it? Look, because that picture she put on her website, she was proud of it, you know.
Hmm.
So it's very. I think most of the surgeons are motivated by money. They don't particularly see the individual, the person. But when there's a massive profit incentive and there's a lot of money to be made, you're going to have sharks. It's just the way it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's absolutely true. I want to go back to the map. I'm looking. The reason I'm looking to my
Sure.
right is I'm looking at the map, and there's dots obviously all over the United States, all over Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lack of dots in other places. Is that because you haven't, just gotten, don't have the bandwidth to go
Yeah.
to all these places, or is it they're
Hmm.
not doing them?
Well, no, it's we know that there's an incredible amount of work to be done in our map in South America. We've barely scratched the surface on that. The problem is, of course, is having people who speak the local language,
Hmm.
who are able to actually make those calls. And in certain places, they've banned this practice entirely. So Sweden, Denmark, they've stopped doing. It's kind of incredible that. In the United States, they're unwilling to do what Europe has done. I mean, Europe started the transitioning of the children back in the 80s, and they've seen now what an entire disaster it has been, and they're pulling it back. But in the US,
Hmm.
they can't seem to even wrap that around their minds because I think they're actually brainwashed,
Hmm.
because they're just like, no, we have to save these transgender children. We have to save them. They can't. They're going to die. It's. I actually also think that it's incredibly reminiscent of a cult.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So when you say that some of these European countries have banned it because they've learned, what did they learn? Did they
Yeah,
just come to the understanding that in and of itself it's wrong and that people need
yeah.
other types of help, or were they seeing the 10, 15, 20 years down the road that there was tremendous negative like what was it?
Yeah, I mean, Sweden saw the light because they had, I think it was a 15-year-old with osteoporosis, which is, osteoporosis is something that normally you get in like your 80s and 90s when your bones are basically crumbling. So
Hmm.
they had cases like that from the puberty blockers. In the UK, they had a very big case, the Kira Bell case, where she's a detransitioner who's decided that, this is a massive mistake. She's a real hero for the movement. And in the UK, they've decided to close the clinic. There was a huge amount of controversy. I mean, whistleblowers were coming out left and right, saying like something is incredibly wrong here. And they've closed the clinic, and I think now they're going to be offering, psychiatric, psychological help, and not medically transitioning these kids. And it's really the same thing that's been going on in Europe as well, because I think also when you have socialized medicine, I
Hmm.
think it's a little bit easier because you don't have special interest lobby groups coming in and saying, no, 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 we can't stop giving puberty blockers to kids, because one puberty blocker implant, costs $40,000, right? So there's a massive profit incentive to not ban these practices. And for example, how much has Pfizer lost out in the fact that they've banned this in Texas, right?
Hmm.
They must be horrified, terrified, you know what I mean? Because this is big money for them. $40,000 per patient, right? For a puberty blocker, that's not bad. If you have a transgender patient, you're looking at $250,000, right? You're looking at an incredible amount of money over the course of 15 years. If you go all the way with all of these surgeries, you could definitely get to $1 million there, really.
Yeah, one person.
So there's a massive profit incentive, and we saw it ourselves. When we were in Texas, at our rally. The people who are running the show are special interest groups, right? That are getting
Mhm.
money for this entire thing. But it's $1 billion industry. That's what we're
Yeah.
up against. $1 billion industry.
So obviously in Europe and other parts of the world, as you said, they have socialized medicine. In the United States, we
Yeah,
don't really, I guess, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
are insurance companies covering these types of surgeries?
Yes. So it's actually incredibly interesting what you're asking here, because Dr. Gallagher, I've spoken about a little bit here.
Yeah.
She has a TikTok, and TikTok is like basically it's for like 13-year-olds. So she has a TikTok where she
Mhm.
explains how to present your case to your insurance company. So you no longer say that you want non-binary top surgery, right? Because that's what you want, right? That's what you're going in to get. You instead say you need to have, chest affirming, masculinizing, you know, you basically cheat the system. So yes, of course, yes, insurance companies are paying for this, but also with the gender mapping project, we were able to find out if uh, if surgeons basically were able to do surgeries on 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds if we were willing to pay out of pocket, if we were willing
Mhm.
to come with the cash in hand. I actually have a recording of that on my website. They said 12 years old is no problem to have a breast removal surgery. 12 years
Yeah.
old.
Well, obviously, in a case
Shocking.
like that, the 12-year-old doesn't have any money, so the parent is paying for it,
Yeah.
and then obviously okay with it. So we also get into that whole issue. Well, I guess two issues is one is you have some, I believe Florida has banned any kind of reassignment. I could be wrong
Mm-hmm.
for minors, even if supported by
Mm-hmm.
their parents. Not every state has done that, and then we have some schools and places that are hiding a transition. Maybe they haven't had surgery or given
Mm-hmm.
hormone blockers, but they're if a little boy decides to wear a dress or something, and they're hiding that information. Is
Yeah.
Where
So.
do you see it going?
Mhm. Well, what one of our founders, Jennifer Crone, she talks about that, her experience in detail. She lives in Washington State, and her kid had been called another name for a year behind her back. And her daughter was just in a peer group and had, yeah, experimenting with identities as kids do. I was a goth. I was a rocker for a bit, like experimenting with identities as one does when you're a teenager. So she was experimenting. She was having another name, but imagine that's not informing the parents about that. They're
Hmm.
calling your daughter he and Sean and whatever the heck the name is behind it. But also, you have to remember that these teachers are terrified. They don't want to
Hmm.
get sued. They don't want to get outed for being transphobic, right, on social media. So I also have an enormous amount of sympathy for them as well.
Hmm.
Obviously, you do have the true believers who are just activists, and you can't even talk to them because they're just completely gone, right, in the cult. But I think a lot of regular people or regular teachers are not comfortable with this, and they're in a position where they're like, hey, like, I really need my job, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, no, I hear you. I agree with you on that. I often wonder how many teachers and other people are scared to do or say anything for fear of their
Hmm.
job. And
Yeah, of course. It's
yeah,
social abuse. You're
yeah,
you're earning $35,000 as a teacher, and you have a couple of kids. You can't you can't mess that up. You can't
yeah,
throw a spanner in the works. You have to
yeah.
go along with it. And I think actually every time we go along with this, we pay for it with a piece of our souls. I
Mhm.
really do, because it's so demoralizing and so degrading to have to call people fake names, like, to call Caitlyn Jenner she, right? Even calling him Caitlyn, right?
Mhm.
It's a demoralizing thing that happens again and again and again. Um, and I refuse completely to participate, even if someone is like a very reasonable person. I
Mhm.
don't play along with the names and the pronouns. I just absolutely cannot. I just feel like it's lying, and I feel like it hurts me actually to go along with this charades, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. Absolutely. Good for you. So a couple things on you, if you don't mind, and whatever you're willing to
Sure.
share. So are you from Israel? Is that, it sounds like
Hmm.
you live in the United States. Is that correct? And you're
No,
from Israel?
no, I'm a Scottish Israeli, so I have a lot of mixed heritage there.
Okay.
Obviously, Scottish people are not indigenous to. Sorry, Jewish people are not indigenous to Scotland. They all kind of end up there by accident, basically after the Holocaust and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a Scottish Israeli, and I'm right here. I'm in Jerusalem.
Interesting. Very, very cool. Well, I was trying to place your
Hmm.
accent, and that was that's why I was having such trouble. I would have never thought a Scottish Israeli, but
Yeah,
uh, yeah. Well, I note
yeah,
I'm looking at the map. There's three clinics in Israel, and
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to look at
Yeah, so
at
I mean, listen, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work
yeah.
to do in Israel. We are really in a difficult position right now. We formed, if there's any Israelis out there, come to our Twitter, at Hayeladim. You can come to it. We're going to share information with you. We're in a really bad situation here with the, there's no program there's one way and one way only, and the media is absolutely swamping us with these so-called progressive stories of wonderful kids who are having a wonderful time transitioning, and it's all great, and it's sunshine and flowers. And I feel that it we went out, as I don't know how to really canvassing, I suppose. We went
Hmm.
canvassing with some leaflets in some of the towns in Israel, and we had a fantastic response. I mean, people were just like, "Oh my gosh, absolutely, thank you so much." We had like one or two people who told us to, whatever, which is to be expected. But we had an enormously positive response.
Yeah.
But we have a lot
So
of work to do. A lot of work to do.
well, yeah, the
We're
whole
in the trenches.
yeah, no, I know, I love it. I think we should all be grateful for you in what you're doing because I'm surprised you're surviving this. I mean, this is the type of thing that the people that are on the other side will seek to destroy you, and they probably are, but you're still standing, and really
What are
that's
they gonna do?
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, yes, there's a couple of stalkers out there who have written some, crazy stuff about me. But at the end of the day, they're just nuts. They're what can you do? You can't argue with crazy unless somebody is going to physically come to my house, which I really hope does not happen.
Hmm.
I'm really not particularly worried. We had a few encounters, obviously, when we were in Texas. A few people who were, you know Antifa, but I just have a
Yeah.
lot of pity, to be honest. I look at them as sad kind of losers that are involved in something. And what's really crazy, Jerry, is that when I see these girls who are crazed, with removing their breasts and whatever, I see myself in them, like I see myself when I was a teenager. I totally would have gotten involved in this, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of scary sometimes when I see these girls going nuts and screaming trans women are women, blah blah blah. Because I see, like, if I was 15 years old, I would be out here, doing this, because it's such a seductive cult, to join. Come and join us. You're going to be really special. You're going to be almost like holy, right? That
Hmm.
people are going to worship you. You're this trans kid. It's fabulous. You have this wonderful, community of people. And then, you get into it and you understand that a lot of the men who are cross dressers, older cross dressers, they have some very different motivations about why they are doing this, right? It's incredibly linked to sexuality, incredibly linked to heterosexual male urges. Um, and it's
Mm,
actually nothing to do with identity. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so a lot of people, like, for me, it's very strange because when I see someone like Caitlyn Jenner being interviewed on Fox News as if he's like a reasonable individual, a reasonable person, and for me, it just like, what on earth is going on? Like, this is a person who is getting erotically excited by dressing as a woman, and everybody else is playing along. I
Hmm.
truly can't. I truly can't understand. And it's by the way, a lot of the right wing media falls for these characters, these
Hmm.
reasonable people who are, Bruce Jenner, he's on Fox News, he's breaking women's boundaries every single day. Every time he uses one of our facilities, every time he's, entering into a space that, women are not wanting him there, right? So to, for me, I just don't, I have no line. I do not have any patience for guys who are dressing up as women and wanting me to play along. I'm sorry. I just, that's, I have a hard stop, if you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, oh, I do. I refuse to go along with it too. Just, some people will say is, well, what do you care, right? Let them do it. Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
no
does it
one's
matter
saying
to
that they.
you?
Yeah, I mean they can do it. I mean, I'm not going to go, handcuff an
No, of
adult and
course not.
make them change, but I'm not going to go along with it and act like it's
Hmm.
real. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like it's true. Also because it's also a difficult thing, because if Bruce Jenner is in my space and I want him out, I'd have to say to someone, she cannot be here, right? If I have to lie and go along with it, right? So when I change my language, I change reality. So I just, for
mhm,
me, and because also I come from a background of, I investigate a lot of pornography. I talk about pornography a lot, right? So I'm very steeped in that world. And I feel a lot of people over the age of 35 do not understand the world of pornography and how it's
mhm,
saturated into our lives. So when I see a man dressing up as a lady or a woman, I understand very much that this has come from pornography. It's an incredibly sexual urge. And I really encourage people over the age of 35 to understand the world of pornography a little bit more, because it's a serious, serious issue. If you have a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, girl or boy, you're imagining something. Like, I always say to people, like, when I say the word pornography, like, my mother probably thinks it's two people having intercourse and it's being filmed, right? I'm like, no, 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 you have no clue what's going on. Beatings, rapes, the incredible racism, by the way, that's available in pornography. I mean, insane stuff, right? And I always encourage people to be aware of that and be aware of how much porn affects our lives in every essence, basically, because it's so
mhm.
saturated into the culture. It's saturated into movies, it's saturated into music videos, it's saturated into advertising everywhere. The culture of pornography, and I think the trans thing and the porn thing are incredibly interlinked. You cannot separate them.
Yeah, wow. I did not know that correlation, and I would love to
Hmm.
have you on another time to talk about the pornography side of things, 'cause I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
that about your background, and I think it is
Oh yeah.
an important area.
That's
So
the
we,
that's where I come from, Jerry. So, I
yeah,
come from, like, if I come from investigating pornography for years. Even going to conferences, going to porn conferences, going to porn sites, sorry, porn shoots. So, I've really gone quite deep into the industry. So I see how much this is translated into transgenderism, especially with the men. You know what I mean? And people over the age of 35 are just like, oh, it's just harmless. It's a guy dressing up as a woman. Who cares? I'm like, no, you need to understand. You need to understand the deep motivations which has caused this. Because then I think you would not play along. You'd be like, oh, that's gross. You know?
right, 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 exactly. And we can't have a fair and open conversation about these things, sadly, without getting censored
Absolutely
and
not.
the
Yeah.
like.
Not getting
And that's a
censored, canceled. I'm
yeah.
not afraid, Jerry. I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I was gonna end as we're coming to an end. This has been really fantastic. You are definitely not afraid, and you're doing phenomenal work, Alex. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all this. And I've been scrolling the website, and I would definitely suggest connecting with Alix. It's actually on Facebook. You can go to Alix Lara. Is that how you LARA is, I think, how you're listed on Facebook? Is that correct? Am I saying it right?
Just my private. It's just my private Facebook. If anybody wants to join, they can join. But on Twitter, I'm at Gender Mapper. So that's where you can get. And my content, I'm just telling everybody right now, it's not safe for work. My content is graphic. So I always warn people, like, if you've got a sensitive stomach, don't come. But yeah, that's my handle.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alix, for all that you're
Thank
doing,
you so
and
much.
keep up the great work. Okay. And thank all of
Awesome.
you for
You
listening to
too.
this episode of Fides Podcast. Please check out all my podcasts and all the different podcast apps on YouTube, on Rumble, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Right America Media, and on whkradio.com/podcast. So thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.